Okay, so, In the Ocean Blue World is a 2010 game for the Nintendo Wii that has become kind of an obsession for me. It's known for being a chill game where you swim around and look at fish, while also having a massive amount of content in the form of quests and some truly absurd achievements in the form of titles, such as Swim 600 Miles, Collect $2 million, and others. But today I'm looking at the final part of the Save the Aquarium quest, which involves getting 1 million aquarium visitors. Because aside from what the game already tells you, there's just not that much info out there on how the aquarium works. Like, yeah, we have a general idea of how to get more visitors, but I want numbers, formulas, math, and that data doesn't seem to exist yet. So I did a bunch of tests and figured it all out myself, and now I'm publishing it in the most responsible way possible. A 30-minute YouTube video. This is the part of the video where it's the channel intro, but I don't have an intro, so yeah, let's just get into it. First, a quick content warning. This video will contain math, and I realize that can be distressing for some people. I put it in the video title, so you should already be aware, but just in case, I've decided to put this nice little timestamp here, just in case someone wants to skip all the math and just get to the TLDR version. Let's look at what we already know, by which I mean what the game tells us, specifically when we ask Kayako how to bring in more visitors. Display lots of different creatures, change displays regularly, follow current trends, newly discovered creatures. 3 of these are pretty straightforward, but let's look at this one in a bit more detail first. Once the aquarium's open, in the staff room you can ask Kayako about the latest news, and she will tell you what the visitors want to see. I call this thing the visitors want to see a theme. As far as I know, there isn't any official term for this thing the visitors want to see, so I'm going to call it a theme. Also, this is not the last time I will make up new terms in this video. Anyway, the theme changes every 7 in-game days. We're going to call this day Sunday. The game doesn't actually keep track of the day of the week, it's just a thing I made up to make it easier to understand. So here's the plan. Go to the aquarium every Sunday, check the week's theme, match the theme in all the tanks, advance to next Sunday. So now we go out and try it, right? No! What is this, your old childhood save file? Look at it! The encyclopedia is like halfway done, and the aquarium's already open. I can't work with this. The problem here is that I'm trying to do science, and for things to be scientific, I need to eliminate as many variables as possible. And if in the 14 years since this game has been released, this save file has done something like open the aquarium that might affect the results of the aquarium, then we can't really use it now. How do you even get 20 fake gold ingots? And so I spent 22.5 hours creating this save file, which has completed the encyclopedia, all quests, all special requests, and all treasure rumors without ever opening the aquarium. Is this overkill? Probably. Really, I only needed to complete the encyclopedia without opening the aquarium, but now I can use this file to perform tests in a completely fresh aquarium each time. Also, I did all this on emulator, which is important for 3 reasons. 1, it's much easier to record and looks a lot better than pointing my phone at the TV. 2, turbo button, because this took a very long time and speedups are very helpful for my sanity. And 3, save states, which are literally what made this whole thing possible. If you don't know, save states are emulator tools which allow you to create a save at any point in the game that you can return to whenever you want. Notably, this preserves all the game's internal data, including all the RNG. I'll go into more detail on RNG a bit later. For now, just think of this as a way for me to go back to a certain point. So the first thing I want to know is which creatures perform best on each theme. Here's what I did. Step 1. Load the save file. 2. Go to the aquarium. We get this cutscene that says the aquarium will open tomorrow. 3. Go back to 9-Ball Island. This advances the Save the Aquarium quest to Part 3 and unlocks the normal staff room menu. 4. Go back to the aquarium. We get this cutscene where Hayako tells us to get 140 creatures and to observe blue whales. 5. Check the theme and create a save state. 6. Fill the main tank with 1 creature. Leave all other tanks empty. 7. Go to the Zahab region and advance 3 days. Why Zahab? Well, when you use the cabin on 9-Ball Island, there's a short cutscene of the player going into the cabin, and that takes extra time. If you go to any of the locations with weather, the weather can sometimes change when you advance time, and I just don't want to deal with that. Then, of the 3 remaining locations, I just arbitrarily chose a hub region. 8. Return to the aquarium. It is now Saturday. 9. Go to the staff room and ask about the aquarium. The number we care about is the increase in visitors since the last visit, which was Monday, which means this is the number of visitors over 5 days. We record that here, in this giant spreadsheet I made with all the creatures you can put in the aquarium organized by tank and size. 10. Load the save state and repeat steps 6 through 10 with a different creature. 11. Once you've finished the main tank, do the same with all the Small World Gallery tanks and the Marine Life Annex. 12. Repeat with a different theme. Let's look at the list of themes. There's marine mammals and large animals, dangerous creatures, large schools of fish, seabirds, young sea creatures, and creatures from a certain location. There's one of these for every map except Iceberg Cavern, which makes sense because it has a whopping 5 creatures including zooms, and for some reason Godama Atoll and Deep Hole are lumped together. That makes for a total of 14, but I'm going to put an asterisk on that for now because there is a bit more to it, but we'll get to that later. So the first theme I got was Cortica River, and I started with the main tank creatures that take up 4 squares, and I got 1550. So then I moved on to the 2 square creatures, and I got 1550. Okay, let's stop and think about this for like 5 seconds. We want to know what the best creature for each theme is, and if the theme is Cortica River, then things that aren't from Cortica River probably aren't the best things to put in the tank. Also, there are 351 creatures on this list, and it takes about a minute to test each creature with speed-ups, which is almost 6 hours per theme, and I don't have that kind of time. So to speed this up, instead of testing every creature, I only did the ones that made sense for each theme. So I skipped ahead and just did the things that are in Cortica River, and here are their results. Ta-da! Let's look at this. Here we have the main tank, 2 squares on the left, 1 square on the right. Here we have the Tropical River small tank and the Marine Life Annex, and all creatures in those tanks take up 4 squares. Notice anything about these groups? The 1 square main tank creatures all did the best by a lot. The way the game handles themes is it checks each creature to see if it matches the theme. If it does, you get a bonus. If it doesn't, you don't get a bonus. And this is for each instance of a creature. So if we put 16 small creatures in the main tank, that means we'll get 16 bonuses. 4 square creatures got about 1610 visitors, 2 square creatures got about 1670 visitors, and 1 square creatures got about 1790 visitors. And if it doesn't match the theme, it'll get about 1550 visitors regardless of size. These numbers work out to be about a 1% boost per bonus. Now you're probably thinking that Red Piranha is the best, but not necessarily. This is where RNG comes in. If you look at the visitor numbers graph, you can see that the numbers each day fluctuate a bit. So basically we throw a plus or minus 2% on everything. What's going on here has to do with the way save states affect RNG. Every time we load the save state, since we're returning to the exact same point, if we perform the same actions every time, we'll always get the same results. But if we perform a different action, like putting a different fish in the tank, we get different results. If we use a different save state, we also get different results. And it turns out I did test Cortica River with 2 save states, and the second time I got these results. Here's another way to look at it. The actual numbers don't really matter. You either get a bonus or you don't. The difference between these numbers is significant. The difference between these numbers is just random variance. I also made a version of this spreadsheet where I removed all the numbers and just put whether each creature gets a bonus or not. You can find both versions in the Google Drive link in the description. Now let's look at all the themes in more detail. First, dangerous creatures. If it attacks you, it gets a bonus. Young. If it has young in the name, it gets a bonus. Schools. If it forms a school, it gets a bonus. But school is a lot harder to define than like young, so I did a lot of tests for this. Of course, there's a bunch of 2 square creatures that you're probably thinking of, and all of them get bonuses. Except Chinook salmon for some reason. Some 1 square fish that count as schools are pyramid butterfly fish, powder blue tang, king angelfish, purple queen, swallowtail sea perch, and red piranha. There are probably more, but like I said, I couldn't be bothered to test everything, and there are a lot I did try that didn't work. I mostly skipped over the Small World Gallery for this one, but I did try Antarctic krill. No bonus. Seabirds. This theme easily has the fewest creatures that fit it. If it's a bird, it does well, unless it's a penguin for some reason. The main tank and small world galleries don't have any birds, so I didn't test anything in them. Marine mammals and large animals. This one is the most interesting. So first I tried all the whales, because whales are mammals. They did not do well. But it also says large animals, so I tried all the other 4 square creatures, and nothing did well. Then I tried all the dolphins, because they're also mammals, and still nothing. For the main tank, the answer is manatees. Yes, these 2 creatures are the only things in the main tank that count as mammals. But the marine life annex was weird too. Of course, I tried all the mammals, and they got bonuses. Unless you use the young variant, then they didn't. And then I tried all the reptiles, even though they're not mammals, and they did get bonuses. Except spectacled came in young, probably because they're young. Finally, all the location-specific themes. Even though Hayako says creatures from whatever area, what she really means is creatures exclusive to that area. For example, blue tang can be found in Gadama Atoll, Deep Pole, Cicero Strait, and Zahab region, but doesn't get a bonus on any of them. Oriental butterfly fish can only be found in Cicero Strait, and it gets a bonus there. Then there's the Arctic and Antarctic, which don't have any 1 square creatures at all, so they're not great. That's it. They're just unoptimal. Iceberg Cavern is also interesting because it doesn't have its own theme. So those 5 creatures that can be found there? All of them can also be found in Weddell Sea, but they don't get a bonus on Weddell Sea, because they technically aren't exclusive to it. Except, I lied. Baldentothan is exclusive to Iceberg Cavern, and it does get a bonus on Weddell Sea. And remember that Gadama Atoll and Deep Pole are lumped together? Same thing there. Sylphin Tang can be found on both maps with no bonus, while things like white marge and unicorn fish and yellowtail surgeonfish are exclusive to 1 map and do get a bonus. Also, this brings up another cool thing about Cortica River, because there actually aren't any creatures that are on both the midstream and upstream maps, and since there's no overlap between freshwater and saltwater creatures, this is the only location theme where every creature that can be found there also happens to be exclusive, and therefore gets a bonus. But then some creatures don't get a bonus when it seems like they should, and not just because the theme itself is misleading. Humpback whale young isn't considered young, and spotted seal isn't considered a mammal. Then, for area themes, blue whale, tiger shark, great white shark, pilotfish, and remora are all exclusive to their areas, but don't get bonuses for some reason. Since these exceptions exist, it's also possible that there are some creatures that do get bonuses when they shouldn't, but I'm not gonna look for them. Now you remember how I said I wanted this to be scientific? Well, I also did a control test with all empty tanks, and I got 1,500. That's lower than 1,550. So it turns out that the most important factor in your visitor count is the number of creatures added to the aquarium. Now what do I mean by added? When you discover a new creature, you can put it in the aquarium, and there will be a tag by it that says new. Once you put it in a tank, it gets added to the list of creatures that have been added, and the tag disappears. It's like the aquarium advertises a list of creatures they've displayed at some point, and the more creatures on that list, the more people come in, even if they're not on display at the moment. I did a test where I added 10 creatures at a time to see it's 10. You get 10 visitors per day for each creature you add. So now we can update our list of steps to get 1,000,000 visitors. Add all creatures to a tank to remove the new tag. Go to the aquarium every Sunday. Check the week's theme. Match the theme in all the tanks, using 1 square fish when possible. Advance to next Sunday. Let's try it. The theme is Valka Castle, we fill all the tanks, and after 1 week we have over 30,000 visitors. And if we can keep that up, we could theoretically be done in just 33 weeks. But you know what's faster than going to the aquarium, checking the theme, and updating the displays? Not doing any of that. So it turns out that doing all that takes about 3 minutes, but advancing 1 day takes about 5 seconds. So in that time, you can advance about 36 days, and in 36 days, you can get a lot more visitors than if you did update the displays. So why do it at all? Well, remember this list of ways to get a lot of visitors? The problem is right here. After a while, we get a lot fewer visitors, but if we change the displays again, the numbers jump back up. The question is just how long we can go between visits to the aquarium. So here's what I did. Step 1. Load the save file again. 2. Go to the aquarium. 3. Go through all the tanks and add every creature to remove the new tag. 4. Leave every tank empty. This makes sure our data won't be affected by any bonuses. 5. Leave the aquarium and return on Saturday. 6. Go to the staff room, ask about the aquarium, and write down all the numbers. 7. Repeat steps 5 and 6. Here's what happened. First, this is the daily average over 2 weeks, so that's not usually the best metric to go by. Total will be nice for some calculations in a bit, but right now what we care about is the increase since last visit, which, in this case, is every week. We start off with about 26,000 and drop off a bit every week until week 21 when it levels out at just 10,000. Here's what it looks like on a graph. I'll address these bumps in a bit. We can also calculate each week's increase as a percent of week 1's, and we get this. You can see the fluctuations each week, but it rounds out to about a 3% drop each week until we hit 40%. Now let's figure out how long it takes to get 1 million visitors. Let's start with the total column, which tells us how many visitors we got after however many weeks. Now we can calculate the number of days we need to advance to reach that amount. It's pretty easy. The first week is 5 days, and we just add 7 for each additional week. We can also calculate the number of trips it takes to reach 1 million. The decimal at the end represents how many days we need to advance after the last visit. Now we just multiply these together and get the number of days we need to advance to reach 1 million. We can even guess how long it'll take. We take the number of visits and multiply that by 185 seconds for each trip to the aquarium, then multiply the number of days by 5 seconds and add those together. Then we can divide by 60 to get that in minutes. When we run all that, we find the fastest way to reach 1 million is 3 trips with 11 weeks in between, and it should only take about 34 minutes. But we can go faster. It turns out, the game doesn't check to see if you change the contents of the displays. It just checks to see if you push this button that says confirm and place these creatures. That means we can skip going to the staff room entirely and just quickly confirm each tank. That only takes about 2 minutes, which means we can update the chart and now we're down to just over 31 minutes. But this was with all empty tanks, so now the question is, what's the best thing to leave in the tanks over 11 weeks? I did this experiment again, but this time I created the Dream Team. So the idea with the Dream Team was to make sure that each theme would have at least one creature that matched it. Starting with the main tank, we have 16 spaces and 14 themes, but 3 of those themes don't have anything that only takes up 1 square, but there's also one theme which doesn't have anything in the main tank, so it works out perfectly in the end. I chose, for mammals, West Indian manatee, dangerous creatures, red piranha, young, golden spadefish young, schools, red piranha, deep hole in Gadama Atoll, purple queen, Cicero Strait, oriental butterfly fish, Valka Castle, Luna lionfish, north coast of Canada, Greenland shark, Weddell Sea, spectacled porpoise, Corsica River, red piranha, Zahab region, powder blue tang, Zahab region depths, sea pig, and cavern of the gods, golden spadefish young. Now the 4 tanks in the small world gallery. For coral gardens, harlequin sweetlips young, yellow boxfish young, white spotted boxfish young, and olive flounder young. The deep, 2 sea gooseberry and 2 of anything else. Cold waters, 2 Atlantic spiny lumpsuckers, 2 Antarctic krill, and tropical rivers, 4 black arowana young. And finally, the marine life annex, spectacled caiman, rockhopper penguin young, polar bear, and white pelican. Notice any trends in my choices? Some creatures match more than one theme, and I tried to put as many of those in as possible while keeping it spread out fairly evenly. Let's see how it went. It's better, but not by much. Now our time is down to just 30 minutes with trips every 15 weeks. That's barely an improvement. Part of that is that the game takes longer to load when the tanks aren't empty, which adds about 15 seconds to each visit to the aquarium. There's also more RNG now since themes matter again, so I added another column to keep track of it. You might notice that some of them say special. So sometimes instead of a normal theme, Hayaka will say something like, "The aquarium helped make a movie. It was featured in a TV special. Young people think it's cool," or something like that. This gives you a boost, although I'm not completely sure how big it is. The best I can come up with is that it adds 6% here. Anyway, if you look at the chart below week 20 when everything smooths out, we can see that we got about the same boost with an empty tank and with the Dream Team, so I don't think creatures affect them. These special themes also explain the bumps on this graph, and it's what I was referring to earlier when I said there were 14 asterisk themes. But there's also one special theme that gives you fewer visitors. Hayaka will say something like, "Oh, you know, the world just sucks and everyone's depressed." I got this on week 8 of the Dream Team test, and it's pretty bad. Let's see if we can improve the Dream Team at all. Like I said, the idea was to make sure each theme would get at least one bonus, and to use creatures that fit multiple themes whenever possible, but that was harder for some locations. For example, what I'll see is mostly seals and penguins, which aren't in the main tank, and since Antarctic silverfish are also found in Iceberg Cavern, and orcas are also found in the Zahab region, we're left with just spectacled porpoise and Antarctic toothfish, so I went with the one that's easier to get. Here's a chart showing the themes that each creature on the Dream Team fits, and here's another one showing how many bonuses we get for each theme. Okay, so what if we take the Dream Team and try this instead? Yeah, remember when I said... Now you're probably thinking that red piranha is the best, but not necessarily. Well, I lied. It turns out the red piranha is the best, because it's the only creature in the main tank to fit 3 different themes. It's exclusive to Cortica River Midstream, is dangerous, and it counts as a school. Since there aren't any seabirds in the main tank, and no mammals are small, the only other possibility is young. But the only young in the main tank is golden spadefish, which doesn't count as a school and isn't dangerous. And the only other dangerous one square creature is lunar lionfish, which isn't considered a school. For the marine life annex, we now have 4 spectacled caiman. It's also exclusive to Cortica River Midstream, and it's also dangerous. In fact, it's the only dangerous creature in the marine life annex. Finally, despite being a reptile, the game gives it a bonus for the mammals theme for some reason. The small world galleries haven't really changed, but I do want to look at them in more detail. Going back to the list of themes, the only ones that apply to the small tanks are young and locations. So for coral gardens and tropical rivers, you can really use any young creature as long as it's exclusive to its area. The deep literally doesn't matter since everything here is exclusive and nothing is young. The only question is if you want to use Sea Gooseberry and get a bonus for Cavern of the Gods, or use anything else and get a bonus in Zahab region depths. In cold waters, you just want to avoid Sea Angel and this one, since they aren't exclusive to one area. The new bonus chart looks like this. Instead of going for equality, we're now trying to optimize just a few themes, which boost our average quite a bit, but also means there are a lot more themes where we do really poorly. So how did the Piranha team do? They actually did worse than the Dream Team, but still better than empty tanks. Although, to be fair, I did get pretty bad luck with the themes when I tried the Piranhas, and the Dream Team had really good luck. There's not a huge difference anyway. Really, I think the Piranhas have a better best case scenario, but since there's so much RNG involved, it's hard to say which strategy is fastest on average without spending a bunch of time just trying it a lot more times. So I wrote a program to try it a lot more times really fast. Now this isn't a bot that plays the game for me. I used everything I learned to simulate all the math the game does. I did make a few assumptions around special themes, like that the chance of getting one is just as likely as any other theme, that it's a 6% boost, and also that the random fluctuations are plus or minus 2%. Basically, this program lets me control values for things like the number of creatures added, how many weeks to run the test, and how many bonuses I get for each theme. To keep things simple, for all these tests I'm going to use 351 creatures added and look at the total visitors after 11 weeks, since that generally seems to be the most efficient. Let's try it with a simulated empty tank. 252,352 visitors. Let's see what happens if we try it again. 249,477. That's quite a bit lower, which shows the range we can get with RNG. Let's keep running it. Now we have 4 values here, and we've reached a total of 1 million. We're averaging about 250,000 each time, but averages are more accurate with more data points, so we should keep running it. I modified the program to run more than once, and to keep track of the greatest and least values, as well as calculate the average each time it's run. I'm going to set the number of runs to 4,000. This time we get an average of 250,304, but let's do a few thousand more attempts just to be safe. Now I feel pretty confident saying that the average for empty tanks is about 250,300. Moving on, let's try the Dream Team. 260,100. Now for the Piranhas. 264,200. So there you have it, the Piranha tank has the greatest average. Still, keep in mind that we're dealing with a lot of RNG here, and this really doesn't matter that much. In my experiments, the Dream Team had the better worst case scenario, and in my testing on the actual game, the Dream Team did better the first time I tried it. The difference between the two is small, and there are a lot of minor changes you can make to any tanks that could affect your best, average, and worst cases. But if, for some reason, someone wanted to know the absolute fastest way to reach 1 million visitors, I would suggest the Piranha tank. Okay, let's recap everything. When you first open the aquarium, if you leave all the tanks empty, you'll get about 300 visitors per day. If you add a creature to the tank, the new tag disappears. Every creature that doesn't have a new tag gets you an additional 10 visitors per day permanently. There's a total of 351 creatures that you can add to the aquarium, meaning you can get a maximum base of 3,810 visitors per day. If you go to the staff room and ask Kayako about the latest news, she'll tell you what the visitors want to see. I call this a theme. The theme changes every 7 endgame days. Each creature on display that matches the theme gets a bonus, and each bonus is a 1% boost to your visitor count. In the main tank, putting 16 of the same 1 square creature will get you 16 bonuses. If you don't update the displays for a while, you'll start to get fewer visitors per day. Your visitor count will go down 3% each week until week 21 when it maxes out at just 40% of the total possible. You can reset this by updating the displays. The game doesn't actually care if the contents of the tanks change. It just checks to see if you hit the confirm button and say yes to place these creatures. The most efficient way to grind aquarium visitors is to put in these creatures and go to either Gautama Atoll, Cicero Strait, or the Zahab region and advance 10 to 14 weeks. Then return to the aquarium, quickly insert the same creatures, and go back. So that's all the math behind the aquarium. There's a Google Drive link to all my Excel spreadsheets in the description if you'd like to look over them for yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I have a few more ideas for Endless Ocean videos, maybe not as detailed as this. And now that Endless Ocean Luminous is coming out, I feel like I have an unofficial deadline before the original games become even less relevant. So you should subscribe if you want to see those, or any of my speedruns. Bye!